Hello friends, C-Note here, and welcome back to Dopamine. I am your host, Christian Rivera, and this channel, this podcast, this whole thing is about personal acceptance and creative empowerment. And this week I just got done profiler training with my friends at Personality Hacker. Now, I was not a student, I have been working with them. And throughout this week, I got a chance to meet a couple of INTPs, some people who are fans and friends of the channel, and fans and friends of Personality Hacker, and have maybe gotten to know me on Twitter and things like that. So I had a lot of really great conversations this week. So this video is a little bit of a tease of going to be processing a lot of stuff soon and hopefully making some videos as a result of that. But one thing that really stuck out to me and something that I felt was important to talk about is affirmations for introverted thinking dominant types, or really introverted thinking types, so TPs, INTPs, ISTPs, ENTPs, and ESTPs. And this is very much linked to mental health and personal acceptance in a sense, because something that a lot of TPs may not realize is that we need more affirmation than maybe we give ourselves credit for. What I mean by affirmation in introverted thinking terms is that, well, generally speaking, first of all, introverted thinking is typically about creating distinctions, ruminating on all of the different ways something can maybe be explained or expressed, and managing a lot of different data points. And that's just a few little bullet points of what introverted thinking is. But introverted thinking is very much an internal truth. It's my truth. It's my processing. What makes sense to me. Even if that eventually becomes more of an objective, provable truth, it starts out as an internal truth. It's an internal logic. It's what makes sense to me. It's part of me rationalizing or processing what I experience. And with that comes internal confusion, internal self-doubt on a regular basis. And while it's not outwardly emotional typically, or like an introverted feeling type of emotionality that comes through, we're still very much human, and there are stakes involved in what we think about. Like, we think about what we think about because we care about that, right? And I think that's important to keep in mind. Even if you are someone who is not necessarily, even if we're not necessarily in touch with your emotions necessarily, it's just worth it to know that there is an emotional component to this. And the reason that affirmations, which there's a particular brand of affirmation for introverted thinking, the reason that affirmations are important because this internal process doesn't have anything to ping off of. So there's always a sense of self-doubt, at least a little bit, right? That's why we question ourselves. And we're banding that back and forth and dealing with that ourselves, right? There's constant identity shifts, there's constant thought shifts, there's constant changes in understanding, some of which and much of which can be happening unconsciously without even realizing it. So much of the time when it comes to introverted thinking, it can get scary when we start putting those thoughts out to people, right? And there tends to be one or two directions that an introverted thinking person who is working on their introverted thinking and extroverted feeling connections, there's two styles that tend to come out. Either someone gets super quiet and is afraid of feedback and just doesn't really share with their thoughts with much of anyone, or they're very eager to share all of their thoughts and literally share all of their thoughts and just sort of hopes that one of those thoughts sticks with whoever is listening, right? So it's either completely keep it in or completely blast it all out. And the nuance happens when you take some time to start to get feedback and make adjustments and be a little bit more thoughtful and be a little bit more selective in the thoughts you do share and how you share them, and getting better at that self-scrutinizing process through getting external feedback, right? not just criticism. Feedback is not just criticism. Feedback is feedback. It's a response. So when you're getting a response, typically, I think what INTPs or ITPs of any kind, or any introverted thinking user would want, is some sort of version of that makes sense or it doesn't make sense. And so there's a couple different ways that it makes sense can manifest. It makes sense can literally be that makes sense, or like, oh, I understand what you're saying, or I get how you got to that conclusion, or just as simple like, okay, or that's interesting. Right. You know, it's the extroverted. I don't know if you've ever seen like extroverted feelers in a group together, but there's a vibe of like a lot of nodding, right? And so bringing some of that in there and giving some feedback, I think, is really important. And so what you can express is, if you're not getting that kind of feedback, to ask for it. And I think that's the hard part, right? So I tend to say on my videos, or like if you've ever met me in person, if I go on a long spiel, I will throw in, does that make sense at the end? Just to confirm. Because if someone doesn't give me an indication that it doesn't make sense, I might have a little bit of an internal panic that maybe I didn't think of it the right way. Maybe I didn't find the right words. Maybe I need to rethink this. Maybe it's not as smart of as I thought it was. And a lot of self-doubt can creep in. I'm not saying that's the case for every introverted thinker. Again, if you're the type that kind of pulls in and gets quiet, they're actually maybe in attack mode, a deflection of saying like, well, I don't need to tailor my thoughts to anybody. It's just because they're stupid, or something like that, right? It's more of a deflection tactic, right? So there's a reluctance tactic. There's a deflection tactic. There's a kind of questioning tactic of like, why do I have to share my thoughts with anyone kind of tactic. And then there's sort of like a full-on blast tactic, right? So really 4 types now that I think about it as I'm talking. And hopefully that makes sense. So, and when it comes to not making sense, what you can also ask for is like, if that doesn't make sense, where did you get lost? Or what do you need me to clarify? Or do you need me to try to say it again, or anything like that, right? And communication is the thing here, right? So when you're wanting to communicate a thought, I've talked about it on all sorts of different channels, or different videos rather, that disclaimers and on-ramps are always a good idea, right? On-ramps being, can I share a truth with you? Or can I share something that I think I see in what you're saying, or I think I'm hearing, or can I help you calibrate that, or anything like that? Just asking for permission, really. It's asking for consent in a strange way. Because throwing introverted thinking at someone can be invasive. Not everyone's comfortable with harsh truths. Like, we know that. And we can get mad about that and say, nobody wants our truth, they can't deal with it. Or we can just say, okay, this is just the reality of it, that a lot of people are uncomfortable with hearing the direct truth, and it might not be the time for them to be able to absorb that direct truth. So you just throwing the direct truth at them won't even mean anything, right? And so what I'm trying to get at is that there's a reason that we're thinking our thoughts. There's a reason that we're trying to explain them. There's a reason we're trying to process them. Because introverted thinking, this solo process of coming up with logic and truths, typically leads to better harmony, to a better cohesive community situation or connection, right? And so if you think about the world at large, there's always these days, there's a bit of one of the terms I always hear is that it's more divisive than ever in America. But I actually think there's not enough distinction. And I think introverted thinking types are really good at supporting distinctions and seeing the positives of distinctions, right? Like, they are what they are. If you land on slicing something down to its essence, like the essence is what remains, and that is what the truth is, or the truth of what we understand with what we have. And so in that sense, like I said, not everyone's ready for that. But if we can learn more elegant ways to have those conversations, not just in the big world stuff, like that's not what I want you to get stuck in, but whatever is true in your world, whatever you're contending with in your world, there's probably people around you who are that you care about, that you're noticing that they're not living their truth. And it's important for you to guide them and support them. And I think it's good for you to start to learn how to, and I'll do other videos or maybe a program about connecting better with others and being able to share your truths. I mean, I have a video about how to best share your information with others that is pretty helpful as well. But really the on-ramps and disclaimers, like, hey, I'm about to share something that's going to be a little bit harsh, but know that it's not personal. And this is just something that I picked up, and it's not a judgment on you or anything like that. And it's just over time, you get to know those things, right? Like feedback is information, right? Feedback is letting you know which of your thoughts are landing with as many people as possible, right? And the way that you speak, the way that you present yourself, the way that you are able to connect your thoughts to another person. Otherwise, it kind of has no point. And I mean, I've reached a point in my life where having all of these thoughts feels useless if I can't eventually share them with someone. And so that's why I have this channel. That's why I'm sharing them with you, and hoping that through supporting you, you can kind of spread that to others and support in the ways that make sense to you. So hopefully this video helped out. This is just kind of like the first of many thoughts that are starting to appear as a result of this week of attending profiler training and being a support mechanism for some of the people here. But as more ideas come up, I will make other videos and all that. So I got to go to breakfast and go to a production meeting and figure out all the work that I'm doing as a result of all the filming that I've been doing. But leave a comment below. Let me know which of those 4 types that you are, if you're more reluctant, if you're a little bit more swat away, critical, or if you tend to be the type that needs to ask questions and you're like, oh, get very squinty, or if you're the type that tends to get into a social situation and gets very eager and wants to blast out all of the thoughts that you have. I would really love to know sort of like the ratio of where that shows up, at least on this channel, and amongst some of the different TPs that show up here. So I appreciate you so very, very much. I hope that you have a good holiday. I hope that you take good care of yourself. Write down your thoughts, and don't let them die with you. Anyway, take care of yourself and each other, and I'll catch you next time on Dopamine. Oh, by the way, we've still got the Are You Really an INTP free course if you're not sure if you're an INTP. Check that out below, dopamine.school. And I also have a new sequence. So if you go to the dopamine.school, sign up for the new email list. There's a new sequence about exploring the inner cosmos, where I talk about creativity in terms of input, process, output, or outcome, and how you can kind of stay in creative flow. So go check that out if you'd like. And there's programs and all that stuff over there too. So I appreciate you. Leave some love, like, subscribe, bell icon, all that fun stuff. And I'll catch you on the next video. See ya.